Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our CXO Roundtable on the topic of digital transformation. I'm Alpna Doshi, Chairman and CEO of Stralin Consulting Services. I'm excited to be here with a very distinguished group of leaders to discuss the critical issues facing today in digital transformation and with the rapid progress of emerging technologies. Embrace the digital wave. It's not about surfing the net, it's about surfing the future. I thought this quote was so relevant. As we all know, technology is at the heart of this change. Emerging technologies of the likes of artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, and the Internet of Things are disrupting industries and creating new opportunities at an unprecedented pace. Gartner mentioned about how the emerging technologies are the keys to unlocking the full potential of digital transformation. They are helping to automate tasks, improve efficiency, and create new products and services. This roundtable, we will discuss the tipping point of digital transformation and how emerging technologies are accelerating the change. But before that, let's roll a short video, a bit of a commercial section
Bridge the
where what
chasm of digital and legacy operational models. We differentiate ourselves as the execution excellence role model of complex implementations with a focus on data-first strategy. With our flagship Straw L2C product and professional services enables approach to simplify complex software constructs and transform lead-to-cash processes in enterprises as a game changer in the digital transformation arena. At Stralin, bold thinking, inspired people, and a passion for results come together for extraordinary impact. We work with clients who do not hide from the future but want to define it. Contact us today to learn more about how we can help you achieve your goals at www.stralin.com or connect with us on LinkedIn at Stralin Consulting Services Inc.
So, with that, I'd like to really have all of our distinguished panelists that you see on the show today to kindly introduce yourself. They are representing have gone through huge amounts of digital transformation. They represent diverse industries and they have a mixed background of marketing, of business, IT, and digital officers. So, with that, I just request to go ahead with anyone. Please just roll it.
Sounds good. I can start, Alpna. Hi, everyone. My name is Suchita Nagale, and I am the CIO for Syntellis. Syntellis is a software company in the enterprise performance management space, and I've been with them for 3 years. Prior to that, I have about 25 years of experience overall in IT, and most of that has been, leading various software companies on their IT functions. I'm really excited to be here and joining this panel of distinguished speakers.
Thank you, Suchita.
Yeah, my name is Umesh Toprani. I run service delivery for Barracuda Networks. We are responsible for delivering security and data protection solutions in the SME space. And I wanted to thank Alpna and Stralin for inviting me to this distinguished panel to discuss all the transformations we've gone through. By way of history, Barracuda was an appliance solutions company and has completely transformed into a SaaS-based solution company in the span of about 4 to 5 years, with about 15 products. So that's the scope of what we've accomplished. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Umesh.
Hi, my name is Tony Young. I'm the CIO for Sophos. And Sophos is a cybersecurity company headquartered in the UK. We have around 45,000 channel partners and over 700,000 customers. We sell endpoint, firewall, and managed services. So a lot of our customers will come to us and say, this managing cybers is in today's world is quite a challenge. and we'd like to have you kind of manage our estate, whether it's all Sophos or a mixed estate of Sophos and some other cyber products. Personally, I've been a CIO, what it feels like to be over 100 years now. I've been in IT forever, and I was a CIO, I think, starting back in around 2004. So it's been quite some time here, and hopefully we can share some experiences from that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathleen Delaney. Alpna, thank you and your team for having me with this great group today. I am the former Chief Marketing Officer for a company called Kofax that was a leader in the enterprise automation space, and that was content as well as business process automation. Before that, I have been in IT most of my career. I really started with Bell Labs, what feels like 100 years ago. And so have seen a career of innovation and transformation, truly, just one wave after another. So excited for the conversation today.
Thank you, Kathleen. Welcome.
Thanks.
Barry, it's between you and me now.
All right. Well, I'll go then. I'm Barry Carter. I'm currently the Vice President of Infrastructure Operations, and for fun, I have the call centers at 7-Eleven. You guys probably know the Big Gulp, the Big Bite. We also have a Big Bite for pizza, and of course the famous Slurpee brand. And so I've been here about a year and a half, after kind of a long tenure of being kind of a CIO of kind of mid-market $1 billion to $3 billion companies, and was really kind of part of the management team at RealPage, where Tom Bravo came in and purchased the company and kind of brought in a new team. And so with that, I needed to do something fun, and decided that I'd go learn about Slurpee. So that's kind of what I'm doing now.
I always stop by for my cup of coffee and donuts, at the gas station as a rule, Barry. So here we go. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. So I'm the last one to go on introductions. Alpana, thank you so much for this opportunity. Did not expect something to come along, and especially on a very busy weekday. Thank you so much. I'm Gayatri Devi. I'm better known as GD in my work circles. Been around for 3 decades, feel like fossils sometimes, but the passion for my work keeps me going. I'm right now heading the global business unit for consumer technologies, ISV, and metaverse for L&T Technology Services. L&T, as you may have heard, was also playing a very good role in the moon mission of India, the Chandrayaan-3. I belong to that family. It is a $21 billion conglomerate. Not many would have heard, and hence I'm saying that don't miss L&T or L&T Technology Services for that matter. Very proud of where I come from.
Thank you, GD. Yes, we all remember that Chandrayaan landing. So great to have you on board and all of our panelists. Without further ado, why don't we have a few questions to put you all in the hot seat? Maybe I'll propose Tony and Suchita to address the first one, and please chime in pretty much at any point. I'm intrigued by the introductions, and which are so changed. It's almost like iPhones getting launched every other day. How are these cutting edge emerging technologies reshaping and propelling the evolution of digital transformation? Specifically as it relates to whether it is blockchain or AI, and what are the challenges and benefits that you are seeing in your part of the world?
Okay, sure. I'll start if that's okay, Tony, from my perspective. So I think digital transformation, Alpna, has been, it's a journey that has been going on now for some time, and there's not a destination to this. It's a continuous evolving journey. And with that, I think a lot of organizations have taken significant leaps forward from a digital transformation perspective. I know at Syntellis, we had a huge initiative 3 years ago when we formed to really establish our systems, infrastructure, move to the cloud, all of those endeavors really happened within a pretty short time frame for us, within 6 months. And we had completed that initial phase of digital transformation, but then it continued to evolve. And the way that I look at it is there are significant trends in the industry as it comes to solutions. When you're in a PE-backed environment, and I know, Tony, you can probably attest to this more closely than anyone else, a lot of pressure on improving efficiency and reducing costs. I mean, that's the heart of the game in terms of us being able to really make sure that we're really moving forward. And IT is the piece that everybody looks at, right? Because that's the vehicle in which that you can improve efficiency and reduce costs. So what we have seen is really a lot of our key vendors have started to adopt AI into their solutions. So for us to start to really get more efficiencies built into our operations, the first order of business is really to take a look at the existing vendors we have or upcoming vendors to see what they're doing within the AI landscape. An example I'll give is Gong is a solution that we have implemented for conversational intelligence. It has AI kind of embedded within that, and we found tremendous value in terms of exposing our pipeline and really making sure that we're understanding where in the funnel our opportunities are, where the challenges are, and how we can really significantly improve that lead to cash and even the sales cycle timeline, reduce that, so we can get a turnover faster in that process. The other area that I'll quickly touch on is data warehousing and data lakes. They have been a huge, huge boom in the industry, right? So initially, just more phrases, we're starting to get into it. But now it's almost a given where, we're required to really surface insights, and I'll say insights more than analytics, because we're looking for insights within our business, and really in the decisions that we're making need to be data driven. So having that driver behind that has been huge for us, and we at Syntellis have done a lot in terms of developing client health algorithms, making sure that we're exposing that to our business users so they can make decisions based on valid information, and then they have insights into the customer base that is out there. So I think, in order for us to be successful on a go forward basis, we have to keep up and really understand where the market is at in terms of these solutions, and make sure that we are not reacting, but we're really proactively monitoring where things are, and then embed that within our business in order to improve efficiency and operations.
Yeah. So moving with the pace. Yeah, Tony, your point, your perspective.
I was going to think, I think it's well said by Suchita. I couldn't agree with her more. It's a impressive response there. I building upon what she was saying, what I hearken back to was there was an article written in 2001 by a Harvard professor named Nicholas Carr. It was entitled "IT Doesn't Matter." And I remember that article because a lot of our peers were kind of offended by this whole thing about thinking that, their jobs were going to be marginalized. And interestingly enough, there's nothing that's further from the truth of what's happened. And I think where Suchita kind of ended up on is this idea of data. Now, I do think that this answer does depend very much upon the industry in which you're in. If you're in financial services, IT is the product, right? In tech, it's different. If you're in healthcare, it's very different. So I think what you have to do is make sure that when you think about this question, there's context to the answer, because your industry will vary, and it changes, and it has nuance to it. What I think happens, though, for most of us is at the infrastructure level, at the apps and business process level, I think Nicholas Carr is right. I don't think IT matters. I think where IT really matters is at the data layer, and that's where the evolution and change is coming. Because at those other layers, you can have phenomenal business process, but that cannot create a sustainable competitive advantage. To create the advantage, you have to be at the data layer. Therefore, you have new innovations around Gen AI and analytics, et cetera, predictive, everything that Suchita was saying. So I think that our focus is changing quite a bit, because I think people are realizing that the value creation that we have and the ability to improve our businesses really now has gone to like that what I would call the final level of maturity, which is really managing and effectively delivering insights into your company at the data layer.
Absolutely. I think those are some of the things that every enterprise seem to have to move in that direction. I'm always also concerned with respect to these changes, and for large conglomerates, if you pick up, say, a particular functional area, like, say, customer experience, Barry, from your perspective, or GD, your perspective, how do you really keep up with those kind of changes? What does it do to the company, to the customers? At the end of the day, technology is not for the sake of technology. It seems to be happening, like, yes, it is moving because there are innovators in the industry, and then the enterprises have to follow through. uh, can you share some light on that, Barry and GD, please?
Yeah, sure. So for us, one of the call centers that I have is the customer service call center, and really what we've seen is we see that 60% of the calls coming in over customer support is really over the loyalty system, and people are really crazy about their points. They want their points and they want to maximize the value of the points. We also want them to maximize their value of the points and get into a bigger basket. And so we also have calls in around our mobile delivery and support. So we've kind of dramatically changed the experience for the customer, and made the store the phone, and now have this great 7NOW delivery application where we'll bring you your beer and your wings and your pizza for the football game. And so we get feedback around the associates, and so we're mining that data, looking for trends, for opportunities to improve the experience every day. And we have a great team of people and great analytics on the back end of that experience, helping us track and drive greater penetration of our most loyal customers.
Awesome. Thoughts, GD, or
Yes.
anyone else?
Yeah, I will share my views here. I have been all through my career catering to businesses and enterprises. So, in that sense, it's a B2B, and the customer experience factor in a B2B is very different from a customer experience in a B2C. And I'm totally cognizant of the fact that most of my customers are in a B2C scenario. So, what will make my customers happy is if their customers and their revenue and their productivity is improved and they are able to see value. So the technology solutions that we as SIs or service providers or engineering services that we are rendering to our customers must and should involve how much of value my customers are able to share with their own, and hence I would like to take a leaf out of Indra Nui's performance with purpose. I would like to slightly tweak that and say we should look at technology with purpose, and look at making it always a boon and not a bane. So to that extent, if you're able to bring out customer satisfaction or customer delight with the help of technology, but at the same time not entirely giving it up to technology, and also having the right level of interventions and automations, I think we'll do ourselves a great amount of justice.
Yeah. And when I'm looking at a number of the board members and how they are thinking, and as I sit around the board table, as many of you would have experienced, it's like, okay, there is one segment of things about making sure the execution is being done as per the changes in technology, because the hype is also there very, very rapidly in the environment. But then to have a strong oversight, to be able to really understand all the nuances, that, if I may call it that way, of AI or blockchain, understand the technology around the boardrooms, that I sometimes feel is not something that every domain expertise is existing around that table in an oversight standpoint. So I'd also like to maybe put this question in a different form to perhaps Umesh and Kathleen. This disruption by the emerging technologies, whether it is AI tools versus the professional services. Earlier, maybe 200 people, teams would come in to do a transformation. Now, much of that can be replaced by certain tools like Gong, you mentioned, Suchita, and several others like even Stryle to see that we are introducing into the market to automate professional services. But please share your insights on that. What are some of the hard stories you have had to go through in this journey, and some good ones as well?
From my experience, it all starts with having very clear, measurable goals, for lack of a better word, going into a project. Now, and there's different levels of them. I think the board will be looking at much more macro set, whereas if you, in my opinion, do it right and you bring along your employees and your customers, they'll be much more granular, KPIs that you look at. But it's just being very clear. And I know at Kofax, that's one of the things that, we really stressed going in. And there is a disruption. I mean, anytime you start this, it's change management. Because if you were just to go in and automate an existing process, I was listening to a podcast and somebody said dumb processes create dumb robots. Like, you just need to really manage that change, but also potentially recreate what you're doing just to do it better. You could have an AP approval system that's been in place for 30 years and one person's a linchpin for that. You sure as hell don't want to replicate that in anything you're trying to automate. So having very clear vision, what you're trying to get to, communicating a lot, again, across the board, from the board all the way down to your employees that are dealing with this change management, I think is crucial.
I've made a note of that. Dumb processes create dumb robots. That's so true. Umesh, I'm sure you are full of thoughts on these topics.
No, I mean, to me, the fundamentals of all these emerging technologies and what have you starts with how does it impact the business outcomes that a company is looking for. It all starts because everything else should tie into achieving those business outcomes that the company is interested in. Now, clearly, it makes sense for executive management and boards to take a look at emerging technologies like AI or whatever it is and understand how and what ramifications these technologies have on the business outcome, be it speed to market, be it more scale, be it more insights. It doesn't really matter, but it has to translate into a business outcome. That's what it starts with. And then once that business outcome is determined, then the rest of the organizations, whether it's, and it doesn't matter what industry, they all line up behind the desired outcome that you're looking for. So just as a simple example, the easiest one for me to talk about is all this buzz about generative AI. It just hit the market back very recently, and there's all kinds of buzz, and there's all kinds of people chattering, and we took a step back and said, does this make sense? Now, there is a much better understanding of what it can do for you. And make no mistake, this is here to stay and it is here to help. But understanding what it is and what the pitfalls are, including what the risks are, is paramount to making sure that you are then implementing this technology within your framework in the most efficient way possible, while minimizing the risk for the company. Yes, does this technology make mistakes? Absolutely. I believe the term they use is called hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and it's flat out wrong at times. I mean, we did a very simple test with this technology, and we talked about Barracuda networks. For some reason, it flagged our CEO as somebody who's left the company over a year ago. It did not have that information available, so it did not know. So the bottom line is, anything that new that comes in, you really need to evaluate, understand, and figure out what you need to do. So what we ended up doing was we created a small team to retrain this algorithm and build it so that we can make sure we can use it internally in many of the applications that we have. So
Yeah.
it's
also a training.
That's the long story.
No, that's it. Completely agree. The hallucination aspect. I sometimes feel like we are going in this whole journey almost hallucinating, because there are so many different factors, and it would be extremely important, looking at it from a human-centered focus as well. Technology put it on one side of the pedestal, but there are real humans here who are trying to deal with all of these changes. Talk about the paradigm shift. Let's change gears on that front right now to see, what are your, specific thoughts. I mean, the COVID did change quite a bit of, all this hybrid workplace and all. Now, of course, the macroeconomic factors are playing, game here. Some countries are doing extremely well. Some others' economy is down. There is war, and all kinds of, if I call it, shooting stars on changing enterprise paradigm shifts. Uh, Thoughts, Tony, Suchita, anyone on the panel on that whole human-centered workplace? What are the specific competencies that are in demand, and how do they operate? Work from home, work remotely, work from moon, for all that matters.
I would like to go on this one first, given that people is a subject very close to my heart. And no matter what AI comes in, Gen AI or otherwise, I think we are not going to do away with people. And human beings, by nature, are very self-centered. They build technologies to help them, not to kill them. So definitely, we have to look at how are people going to kind of adapt. I think we are very good at adapting as well, like the pandemic taught us. There were customers who said you cannot take your mobile phones inside the ODCs, the offshore development centers, but they ended up giving their laptops and machines to the individual team members' homes. So security being such an important criteria, still I think we adapted ourselves to bring in checks and balances to enable working and to enable progress. Right, that is what the pandemic has taught us, and very clearly. The future is going to be all hybrid, and wherever I think all of us know this is a no-brainer, but where things are going to be slightly different is uh, the places where you will have to have physical presence, right? So not everything is going to be given away to a hybrid working model. There will still be offices, there will still be for example, hospitals. You will definitely need people to help you, the nurses and the paramedics to be there. So the corporate office can probably of the hospital can probably work from home or do a hybrid, but people who are caretakers have to be there. So every industry will have its quota of percentages, basically what proportion of people can do hybrid, who just cannot. And same way, people who are dealing with devices in a particular setup or plans, and engineers who have to be fixing things on machineries, they will all have to be there in person. Of course, there is a big line of work going on about robotics and seeing how robots can help us there. But I think that will take some time to come. In fact, last year when we were building metaverses, we saw that there are several possibilities for metaverses, but what will really take off is the engineering or the industrial metaverse. So the consumer metaverse or the enterprise metaverse will be nice to have, but not a need to have. So a similar thing will happen in terms of workplaces as well. This is my take, Kalpana. I know each of us will have our views, so I'll let others take their views.
Resonate with that. Anyone else?
I mean, at Sophos, we were working remote before COVID, so having or working in a hybrid motion, and so it was COVID really didn't change a lot for us. I think in terms of coming into the office or not. I think though that I don't know if there's a one size fits all answer when it comes to are you working from home. I don't think there's I say an absolute or binary answer. You work from home or you work from the office. You work from both. I think there's a lot of things, as GD said, involved where industries, company cultures, leadership. How do you know? And we still grapple with a lot of. I mean, the age-old question, which I think a lot of people do, is when you have all of your newer coworkers, especially those coming out of college, how do they get the appropriate mentoring? And there's this whole, I still remember when we came out of school that, you didn't know what you didn't know. And I remember I had my first job at HP, then I went to a startup. And it was interesting because there was a lot of things that I learned that I actually didn't even realize that I was learning, just because I observed my coworkers and learned how they worked, etc. That if you don't, in fact, I got a call yesterday from somebody who just graduated from college asking the same question about getting some career counseling. I said, well, one of the first things you need to understand is who's going to mentor you, because you need to learn how to work. I don't think any of us have figured out what the right answer is to that. I do agree with GD that I mean, I think it's primarily going to be some type of hybrid. But I think this is something that we all are still figuring out. I'm not sure I'm aligned with the CEOs. You'll hear the proclamations that come out that there's the thou shalt, we will all work in the office, or we'll all do this. I'm not sure that that's going to be the right long-term answer, especially with generational gaps in the workplace where you have, I think you have to respect the fact that with the generational differences in the workplace, not everybody sees the world the same way you do. And I think there might be some disconnects there, but in the end of the day, it's probably some form of a hybrid that will carry us forward.
Yeah, I mean, there is much. I was on an NACD panel yesterday where this topic became also an important topic that most executives and board members are talking about. Somewhere or the other, the attrition, people don't always want to come to work anymore. And it also depends on the jobs and the responsibilities. But alongside of that, let's go a little bit more in a direction of, yes, there is this human-centered workplace discussions that are ongoing, and we need to continue exploring the best fit at any given time. How about on the regulations and ethics? With the generative AI, Umesh, you brought that up, and I'm sure Barry, Kathleen, others have an idea on that particular front. What are the ethical implications of these emerging technologies? How can we ensure, whether it is students wanting to apply to colleges, starting from there, to how we deliver or develop code, and how robust it is from cybersecurity? At least three of the companies you represent are from cybersecurity domain. And how are all these going to be addressed? And we have seen through years, like different eras brought in different kind of regulation, but it seems always like regulation is the laggard and follows after the things have already happened, right? So thoughts, please.
Yeah, so this is Barry. So what I actually think is that really that's probably kind of most interesting is the Screenwriters Guild and their kind of recognition that their content is being mined by the AI, the generative AI, and that their rights and ultimately their livelihood could potentially be impacted as a consequence of that. And I think that people are now beginning to think about IP rights relative to generative AI, and I think that there's going to be some significant challenges there. Regulations always are always fall behind the problem, and so I'm sure that the government will do their fair share to try to come in after the fact and try to help regulate. But really, as we think, we have to take calculated risk within our markets. And I'm, a big free market fan, have been using AI for years since I started trying to teach a computer to repair a car back in the mid 80s through the airline industry, and using revenue management systems and sophisticated algorithms to maximize the price of a perishable seat. So I think that we have to let the market continue to move forward. the regulators will come behind, and then let's evaluate the risk of what we're doing to try to anticipate future problems.
Yeah. I have a funny story. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead.
To tack on to that, or at least I think it's funny. There's a common sense aspect to this, and particularly as leadership, you need to really represent your brand as whatever you're doing or using AI for. So like about 4 years ago, I started using a fabulous software for our inbound demand gen inquiries. So people reaching into our company and saying, hey, I want to learn more about Kofax. We had an AI bot that managed all those emails. I kid you not, my bots in Asia were getting asked out for coffee. And then fast forward, the folks that were managing them in the different regions wanted to go create LinkedIn profiles for the bots because we gave them names. You got an email back from Sally Sue at whatever. And their manager came to me and she's like, I'm really wrestling with this. Like, should we create LinkedIn profiles for Sally Sue? And I'm like, absolutely not. While it might have made them, more real for folks getting these emails, which, by the way, I question so many of my emails I get anymore. But it's just from an ethical perspective, gosh forbid somebody should find that out, my brand was at risk. So I think there's always, you have to take these decisions, understanding the entirety of the value chain and really what a short-term gain might cost you big time down the line. But it also goes to the mentoring that you do for the junior employees that see things in a completely different way. I mean, they've got avatars, they've got Instagram profiles set up for their animals. So it's a different generational just perspective that I thought was really fascinating there.
Interesting. Yeah. Umesh, you were going to add something there?
Yeah, I always wanted to talk about this. So thank you. This is a great opportunity because it brings me to my favorite phrase for this year, which is you have to balance, the key word there is balance, risk and value. To Kathleen's point, deploying new technologies is fraught with risk, and AI is no different. Okay, that it leads to all kinds of different potential issues. Number one, there's clearly privacy and ethical risks. Second is, at the end of the day, the model is only as good as the person training it. So there could be some unintended bias creeping in. Three, it also opens itself up for security breaches. I mean, given from a security company, we're petrified that somebody is going to download some pieces of code and embed it in your product. That is a dangerous thing, because that just opens up another door for a security breach. And the other, typically, it's a new form of attack. So what happens in scenarios where, for example, your copyright is infringed unknowingly? I mean, there is no way this model is going to determine, what I got was a copyrighted version of something. Don't know. So what if you could get sued? Because, hey, you used something that you're not supposed to. There's supposed to be a royalty associated with it. So there are some of these types of questions that we need to weigh and balance so that you determine, is it worthwhile for us to utilize this technology to further our product? To Kathleen's point, don't jump for the short-term gain at the expense of long-term challenges. And to the point on, I think to Tony's point, everybody struggles with the mentoring aspects of junior engineers. We are in the same boat, I think, as everybody else. We are a flexible hybrid workforce. And like Tony, most of my workforce was close to 40% remote. It's close to 50% remote now. Not a whole lot of difference between pre and post COVID, but we also struggle when we bring in junior engineers to make sure that they are getting the mentoring they need to learn. Again, a great phrase from Tony, how to work. They're very smart when they come out. They have these phenomenal technical skills and coding, programming skills, and very sharp. They are much smarter than we were when we graduated. But the important thing that they need to learn, which they learn when they're on the job in the office, is how to work. And I think that aspect is what we're struggling with. I don't have an answer, unfortunately, but we're thinking about it.
Yeah, so the only thing I would just add, Umesh, I mean, I really liked what you were saying on the privacy and ethics side of it. The one thing that we struggle with is really finding that boundary between utilizing private AI models and then leveraging the public models, right? Because public is where you see a lot of the risk. So we're looking to improve efficiency in our software code development practices using AI to generate code, but we've elected to do that more in an internal private capacity. And Tony, I agree, it depends again on the industry, the size of the company you're in, whether you can afford to really have the investment in private models. But that's a way to control some of the risks that that we have out there. And it's a boundary. Like, it's really trying to figure out, like, where is that boundary and where do we feel comfortable leveraging public versus coming back internally and utilizing a private model.
How to work, that's one of the takeaways right here. And I think if we now move into maybe the last part of our categories that we'd like to address before we open it up for, also I'd encourage our audience, it's a live audience, if you can post your questions in the chat for our panelists to take up and think about. One of the things that comes to my mind is the digital transformation 2.0. Orbits move on, and I feel like whether it is 2.0 or whether it is 2x right now, that's a real question. And the good part is we have all seen that over a couple of years something new does happen. Now in this case, you all are representing such important domain areas of your companies and your past experiences. You all know that you have to be better prepared at some point for the current change that's happening with generative AI or the blockchain adoption at some point, or quantum computing, whatever might be around the corner. So I'd really like to open this question to each one of you. If you could share your thoughts on how can businesses prepare for these trends and ensure they're not left behind. I've been in the industry for 30 years, and starting from ISDN to ATM packets of 53 bytes to now where it is, nobody in this generation would even recollect any of those points. So let's talk about that.
I mean, I can start. I mean, it's interesting because when I look at my career, we always thought that things would get easier. And I'm at a point where I think things are getting harder and harder and harder, because before, if you think about what problems you were solving, they were actually fairly simple, right? You would say, well, you had a choice of ERP, you picked one of these two. You had a choice of CRM, you did this. I mean, everything was fairly standardized. And you go to today, the pace of innovation is accelerated to such a point that, I mean, it's extremely difficult to keep up. I mean, I struggle with it. I've gone to multiple VC events to listen, to look at investments in AI, which companies are out there. Everybody is attaching AI, for example, to their product base. Fundamentally, it comes down to, how do I actually pay for these things, to be honest with you? I mean, I'm going to go all the way back to, I think it's really hard to keep up, but then there's this really practical point of view is, how do I pay for this? My budget's I'm not going to get more budget. I mean, I'll have a natural increase like you would normally have, but at some place there's a displacement of how do you pay for something. If I went back and said, well, let me buy something from Salesforce, from Microsoft, from this vendor, let me go buy some innovations from some startups, I'm going to double my budget. There's just no way I could even pay for these things, to be honest with you. And I think I'm a little bit right now when it comes to Gen AI. I'm not on the product side. I'm on the IT side. I actually take a little bit of a step back and a pause, because there was a famous saying I've heard from another CIO where he says, I always like to see somebody else get fired first, and then I can make a decision from there. I'm a little bit in that camp where I'm not quite sure where to put my bets yet, but I'm watching other people place their bets, and I want to see what happens there before I determine where to put my bets.
Yeah, and that's I totally agree with that, Tony. I mean, I think this phrase now, like generative AI, is used everywhere, right? I mean, you see all the vendors have it, all the products seem to have some elements of it. I would say, just extending what Tony said, is to look at the business case. And Kathleen, I think you alluded to this also in your earlier conversation. Is there a business case? Where is the business value? Like, what are you trying to do from a business perspective, from an optimization? Like, where's that problem? And then look at alternative AI modeled solutions or other, emerging technologies that can help us in that area. But to address it from a technology perspective first, without there being a business, issue, that tends to then lead us down the funnel where how do you pay for this, right? Whereas if you went through from a business case standpoint, then you would have the funding, you would be able to then figure out like what the right answer is around that.
GD, your thoughts from
Yeah.
the big landing of the moon at the lowest cost?
uh, yeah, I know. I think Indians have always been an expert in doing things at suboptimal prices, right from our earlier generations onwards. The recycle, reuse, all of that has been part of the culture, and we are so used to it. So I guess anything in low cost is a child's game. But coming to the point, two things that I want to make here. Alpna. First one on the regulation, right? I think we are overthinking very clearly our generation. I'm sure when we all stepped into workforce, our earlier generation must have thought, how are these guys going to work? How are they going to manage? And how will they manage security? How will they do this, that? Maybe world was not this complex, but we had our own set of challenges. For example, in those days in India, we had just one channel to watch, and my parents would worry that we would get spoiled watching that channel, which will only have programs which are very, very mundane and about day-to-day life and cooking and all of that. And they would be very worried for us. Now, we as the generation, we are worrying for our next gen and the workforces. I think they will figure their way out. They're smart people, they'll figure their way out. Yes, it is our responsibility to educate them and ask them to be careful about the security challenges. And I think even that is quite exposed these days, right? People are getting into scams, and then they realize that, yeah, I made a mistake. So and I think what is a boon is also a bane, in the sense the news is all over and people get to know and learn, and we are smart. Like I said, we adapt ourselves very quickly. So that's the first part. I think regulation will follow after the mistakes happen, which is bad. We can only be so much proactive, right? We can think for the problems that we are aware of, what happens to the unknown unknowns. If we will realize when it happens, then we'll form a quick regulation around it. That's my view. The second part of digitization, and I agree to Tony and to Suchita that now everything has a Gen AI. I think the past 2-3 years has been, there was a metaverse wave, now there's an AI wave. Some years back there's a blockchain wave, but truly AI has been there for some time now, maybe more decades than we could realize. I in fact caught up with an AI movie which was released a decade back. The name of the movie is Her. Do watch it. It is about how someone is having a relationship with an OS, which is AI driven. So I guess we are at a point where everybody will try to package things as AI, but there is no pride in it unless it really solves a business problem. I think the speakers talked about it. There has to be a purpose. It has to be lesser riskier for the ecosystem and the business, and of course the value, and above all, I think the integrity of the community, integrity of the businesses will come out in how we are packaging our stuff as AI or non-AI. It has to solve the right problems. I will pause there.
No, excellent. Well said. And I think let's open it up to the questions from the audience. So we have some great questions already lined up. Some of them are coming in the chat, some others in the WhatsApp. I mean, this is the nature of technology. You have like 3 devices all integrated in one and 2 eyes, right? So one of the questions, maybe I think Barry and Kathleen, Umesh, some of you may have some insights on it, is having been both on the business and technology or IT side. Now I'm combining one or two questions here. How do you decide what is the right emerging technology to use? Is it IT? Is it business? Or is it a technology who is deciding what technology to use, right? The generative AI. So, thoughts, perspectives here.
So I think it's kind of a combination of the business team and the technology team exploring things together. I had a huge opportunity to learn as a divisional CIO at Capital One Auto Finance when CEO told me we're going to triple the business in 3 years, and we're going to double the business each year for 3 years, and we call it the triple double. And I said, well, how are you going to do that? He said, well, I don't know. He said, but we're going to test and learn, but we're going to test and learn on a shoestring, right? That's kind of the key approach. And by God, he was right. I mean, we provided more AB offers to people than you can imagine back in the early 2000s, but we landed on the ones that appealed to the customer, that had low risk, and actually we overshot the moon. And in the second year of the triple double, we originated about $14 billion worth of loans, and we were only supposed to originate about 8. But my advice to folks is partner with the business, but also don't hesitate to test on a shoestring and learn from your exercises. And I think that was tremendous insight early in my career.
Thank you. Another question from the audience is, why is AI taking so much prominence in healthcare sector right now? One of the last domains to adopt, maybe because it has so many more regulations to align with. Anyone?
I would just say that, I mean, healthcare is part of every person's life. And so to the extent that, the new technology can make it easier, there's just a natural vacuum that's going to be created to pull it in. I mean, I will die a happy woman if I never have to fill out a paper form at a doctor's office again for information that I know is sitting in a portal somewhere. It's just the innovations are ripe for it. If you've got x-rays being read by AI that are better than the human eye, it just makes so much sense to move in that direction. So I think, yeah.
And that's good. And the only thing I would add also is just the amount of data that is in the healthcare industry, and leveraging AI to really mine that data, provide insight, and allow for the decision makers to make decisions faster within, whether it be doctors, whether it be even like CFOs at the healthcare systems. I mean, there is tremendous potential for AI to really help with those aspects of the business. So that I think is one of the key drivers.
I would agree. I mean, going to the doctor and filling out when you change doctors, new patients, how many forms again and again you got to fill out. I mean, that's something that can definitely be taken up with AI. One question from Fanindra Kovar. I hope I'm saying your name right, Fanindra. As a person who's trying to build an AI company which can really work well, I want to understand what is the issue you are facing with the present solution you are using. Anyone wants to take a stab at that?
I think I can probably try to answer this, Alpna. I don't think there is an issue with the present solution. I mean, we're not talking about a single solution here. We're talking about the approach to AI and the practices that one has to adopt, and how will we make it to benefit humanity rather than put us on the back foot. So definitely any new technology is embraced very well by all of us, and very quickly, rapidly. But it just has to go with the value. I think we've been discussing about how we need to be staying guarded as far as an AI solution is concerned.
Okay. Yep. Other thoughts, if anyone wants to add in? Okay. All right. I think with that, I would say that maybe the one more question we can take, and that one came in about the whole aspect of considering now there are, everyone is definitely talking about AI. And So there is a way to get additional insights with AI, but do you still need external help to give you insights? Does anyone want to take a stab at that?
Well, I could argue that many of the insights should come from external. I guess I'm not understanding the question. If somebody interpreting it,
Yeah, so I think the question relates more to whether external professional help is still a need. I mean, people who are providing consulting, including ourselves, are they really needed if AI tools can do all of that work? And where are we in that phase?
So I can take a shot at that real quick. From our standpoint, when you take, this is not specific to AI, it's specific, but it's in general, if there's a new technology and you have determined there are some business benefits to deploying this technology, be it AI, and in the case of AI, for example, you make that determination, then that has ramifications for the entire organization. And you basically then need to have established or build a skill set within the company to be able to then deploy it successfully and utilize it for your use case. So in my mind, there is always going to be a need for people who provide expertise in this area to, as a minimum, help you build that capability within your own function or within your own company, as the case may be. Because this is not something that everybody's born knowing. It's an acquired skill that people have to learn as they go along. And most engineers figure it out over time, but sometimes that is not a luxury that you have. The two things that you have to obviously worry about is time and cost. And both in that scenario, I see a need for folks who have deep knowledge in a particular subject being able to come in and help build something fairly quickly for that company. So that's just my 2 cents.
I'd just like to add in there that, of course, AI has been there for a long, long time. The fact
1959 is to be exact.
There you go. You have your facts there, and so it's the all the new packaging, the branding, and really bringing it to limelight that's making it get included into the real use cases that we are going to apply with the common day-to-day operations and improving efficiencies. I would say that why don't we? I think at this time it would be, this has been such an interesting perspective, again, interesting insights, both from VC, private equity, and public, medium, large size MNCs. Every one of you has been a tremendous contributor. It would be good to understand from your perspective about what is that one takeaway that each one of you really wants to share with our audience, something to move forward with before we close this session with some of my closing remarks. Let's go ahead. Rapid fire round.
I'll start. For me, it's very, very simple. I'll go back to my favorite. You have to balance value with risk before you think about moving forward with the brand new shiny object that comes along. So think about it from that standpoint, and you're going to be fine.
I will go next. As I said, technology with purpose. That should be the motto.
Mine is don't be afraid. So it's really just looking at alternatives, be open-minded and see what's out there. But, Umesh, to your point, and GD, it can't be technology for the sake of it. It has to have a purpose.
And since the title of the webinar is Accelerating Change with Emerging Tech, I think it's making sure that you look at your whole loop 360 degrees. Look at your customers, your employees, your business, bring everybody into the loop so that you can ultimately drive the success that you want.
This varies. So we learn geology the morning after the earthquake. So feel free to learn, experiment, take calculated risks.
Yeah, and I would just say, I mean, what I've learned over the years is we don't do IT for IT's sake. We do IT to solve real business problems, make sure that we're solving some real problems. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh my God. These are such valuable jewels that we have been fortunate to hear from all of our panelists. And with that, I would say, I mean, the key point is yes, the tipping point, the pinnacle. It's something that all stakeholders taking calculative risks have to be collaborative across the industry and across regions. Different geographies come with different challenges, and different age groups come with different challenges. With that, as we conclude our exploration of digital transformation 2.0, emerging technologies, and the powerful force of AI, let us keep in mind that in this era of AI driven innovation, supplemented with blockchain, other computing technologies, the path to success is not in resisting the change, but in collaborating and embracing with intelligent machines, but with a human centered approach to shape a smarter tomorrow. It has been immense pleasure, Barry, Umesh, Kathleen, Tony, Suchita, and GD, to have and enjoy this fireside chat with you. And I'm looking forward to the great, great progress and success that you will bring as game changers to the industry as the thought leaders for your company as well as for the rest of our audience. Thank you, and everyone enjoyed having you listen into this and your questions, and look forward to meeting you again at our next annual CXO event.